Disaster! Though you were holding your tension tool and picked properly, you feel a sting across the back of your hand, making clear that you have inadvertently triggered some kind of anti-thieving mechanism.
Oh, come on. Really? What kind of a rogue are you?
Hey, it was a tough trap. It's not my fault.
Wow, our new rogue isn't very good. Can we return him to the store, maybe?
I doubt it.
The shallow cut, though a trifle, burns like caustic acid. In the time it takes to breathe in and out twice, you already feel your eyesight begin to fade. Ah! I can't see! I can't see!
Oh, wonderful. A blind rogue. That will certainly help us find and disarm the next trap.
Yeah, and I have lots of traps for you all too. With Describe, I have access to lots of narrative descriptions of traps to make you all suffer greatly as you die very, very slowly. You could say they are my accomplice in murder.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. But what are we gonna do about our rogue? He put on that goofy hat and shirt, and now he's really, really bad.
What are you talking about? This is our new player. The old rogue got kicked out of the group, remember?
No! He's doing it again! He just took off his cloak and put on that shirt and that hat! But it's the same rogue! Why won't you guys ever listen to me?
Because you're a moron. Indeed, that's pretty much why.
Yeah, you suck!
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can use in your Dungeons & Dragons games. Today in the Lair, we're going to be talking about complex traps. Most of us are familiar with simple traps, spikes poking us from the floor, falling into deep pits, and getting smoked by flaming runes. But complex traps are used far more seldomly in games, which is a shame because they can be lots of fun for players and can take your game to the next level. Specifically, I'm going to be going over what a complex trap is, how to design a complex trap, and how to run complex traps at your game table. Now, before we jump in, would you like to be able to deliver beautiful narrative descriptions to your players, such as that glorious poison needle trap that Gary the intern blinded the rogue with? If so, Describe has you covered. Describe.com has thousands of scenes with finely crafted box text of monsters, places, spells, characters, items, and even traps. And get this, many of the scenes are completely free and hundreds more are available with a paid subscription. You simply go to Describe.com, type in the name of the scene you're looking for, and then choose from dozens of results to find the perfect, professionally written narrative description for your RPG game. And with Describe's Nearby Tags feature, you can find scenes with related descriptions, such as all scenes related to traps. Click Scenes, Nearby Tags, and then click the tag you need. In my case, I needed a trap for Gary the intern to read, so I chose Trap and then picked the poison needle trap. So if you want to enhance the theater of mind experience for your players in your next game session, check out Describe at dscryb.com/thedmlair. And if you use the coupon code thedmlair, you get 10% off your first subscription payment. So if you go for that juicy annual payment option, you'll save even more. What is a complex trap? Complex traps are not a once and done affair like simple traps. They're not just some poison needles that shoot out at you. Complex traps pose an ongoing danger and threat to the characters until they are bypassed or disabled. Complex traps can be compared to combat with monsters. Until the monsters are dead, run away, or the characters run away, the monsters remain a threat. That means that with complex traps, everyone rolls initiative, just like you would with a combat encounter, and things are resolved in order, round by round, just as though you were in combat rounds. A complex trap has the following similarities with simple traps: level and threat, a trigger, and countermeasures. If you want to learn more about these elements, check out my Traps 101 video, linked down below in the pinned comment. However, a complex trap has the following additional game mechanics: initiative, active elements, dynamic elements, and constant elements. We'll get into the details of those in just a moment when we talk about designing a complex trap. By the way, Xanathar's Guide to Everything gives some solid information on designing and running complex traps in your game too. So if you want some written reference information, I suggest picking it up at the link below too. How to design a complex trap in 9 steps. Number 1, determine the purpose of the trap. Why is the trap even there? Why would the creators of the trap have gone through all of the effort to make such a terribly intricate trap? You should know the answer to this. Doesn't really matter if your players ever figure out, but you, the Dungeon Master, should know. For instance, in the case of the Path of Blades trap that I'll be using as an example here, it was placed in the entrance of a pyramid that leads to the resting place of Queen Zenobia. The trap was put there to protect the pyramid's contents from grave robbers. Number 2, determine the level and lethality of the trap. You need to determine which level the trap is designed for and how lethal it should be. Doing this is pretty much the same as it is for simple traps, so again, I'll refer you to my Traps 101 video if you need more information on that. I will say though, that when determining the damage output of the trap, you need to consider how much average damage the trap does to all characters who can be expected to be affected over the course of the entire encounter, which of course means that you need to make some assumptions. How many PCs will probably be affected? How much damage are they likely to receive? How long is the encounter likely to last? So doing the math for that is a bit more complicated, I admit, and based on assumptions that may or may not turn out to be accurate. However, just remember that the CR system in 5e is mostly broken anyway, so if you don't get it perfect, I wouldn't sweat it too much. I mean, if monster encounters are often impossible to properly balance, why shouldn't traps be too? Number 3, consider a map. Complex traps. Consider drawing out a basic map that shows where the different components of a complex trap are located. The damage dealing parts, the vulnerable elements, and anything else where positioning might be important. Complex traps are complex, and it's likely that during the course of the encounter that the location of different elements of the trap will become important. So have that information figured out in advance before your players start asking you. For our Path of Blades trap, we have several different parts where location is relevant. The whirling blades that slice up characters when they get too close, the pillars that fall and crush characters in their path, and a rune of fear that affects PCs within 30 feet of it. Number 4, design active elements. The active elements of a trap go off on certain initiative counts, usually initiative count 20 and or 10, and either deal damage to PCs who are in their area of effect or inflict a condition such as being knocked prone on them, or both inflict damage and a debilitating condition. The active elements then work similarly to the way a simple trap does, except that the active elements go off every round. I suggest having 2 to 3 active elements with each affecting different areas of the map. 2 should deal some sort of damage, and the 3rd should impose a condition on the PCs. Remember, dealing damage is great and all, but conditions, such as being covered in goo that slows you down, makes things more interesting at the game table. For our Path of Blades trap, we have the following active elements. The whirling blades attack each creature in the first half of the hallway on initiative count 20. A crushing pillar falls on creatures in the second half of the hallway on initiative count 10. And finally, a rune of fear that causes creatures toward the end of the hallway to become frightened and run all the way back into the first half of the hallway where they can get smoked by the whirling blades all over again. I can see players begging for mercy already. Oh, it is a beautiful thing. And of course, there are either attack rolls or saving throws for all of the elements of a trap. Those will always be a thing for the various elements in a trap. You'll use the level and threat you determine for the trap to determine what those are. And if you need help on that, I laid out some guidelines for doing that in my Traps 101 video. So just see a reoccurring little theme here of me referencing that video to go watch if you want to learn the basics of trap building. Number 5, design constant elements. Constant elements represent a continual ongoing hazard presented by the trap. These are usually one of the active elements, only instead of happening on an initiative count, it happens whenever a character ends their turn in the element's area of effect. For instance, with the whirling blades, not only do they do damage on initiative count 20, that's the active element, but if a PC ends their turn within their area of effect, the PC automatically takes more damage from the whirling blades. That's the constant element. Word of wisdom here, don't fill the map with constant effects. Let there be safe spots. That's part of the fun for the players, figuring out where it's safe to stand and where it isn't. This turns the challenge of the trap into not only bypassing and or disarming it, but also learning how it works and where they can stand to take a breather and think about their next moves. Generally speaking too, constant elements shouldn't do as much damage as active elements. Ending your turn in the whirling blades should be painful, but not quite as massive a wallop that happens when the whirling blades take their turn in the round. Number 6, design dynamic elements. When monsters stick with the same tactics round after round of combat, such as squaring off and just swinging away, things can get boring after a round or two. In the same way, when a complex trap only ever does the same things, it becomes predictable and less interesting for the players. Dynamic elements change over the course of the encounter with the trap, spicing things up and forcing the players to adapt to changing conditions. Just when players think they've figured out where all the safe spots to stand are, the whirling blades change positions along the walls. Or, on round 3, poison gas pours forth from holes in the floor in the safe spots where the characters have all gathered for a breather. Trap elements could also get more dangerous as the encounter unfolds. For instance, every time the whirling blades miss a target, they pick up speed, dealing another die of damage when they do hit. Once they hit, they slow down to their original speed, but begin picking up speed again for the next wallop. Dynamic elements can also come into play based on the character's actions. If they disable the whirling blades, all of the columns tumble down and the ceiling begins to collapse on them. So design at least a couple dynamic elements in your complex traps to keep things interesting for your players and make your traps more fun for them. I love how we define fun in D&D. Monsters attacking, traps cutting you in half. Yay, these things are fun! Number 7, design triggers. A trigger is the thing that sets the whole trap off to begin with. It's the oh crap moment when a player realizes they've done something very, very bad that they'll soon regret. Now, what triggers a complex trap is basically the same as triggering a simple trap. Pressure plates, tripwires, arcane runes, etc. If you need more information on triggers, I will once again refer you to my Traps 101 video. Number 8, design initiative. Now, I've already mentioned how the active elements of a complex trap will act on certain initiative counts. Now, you could roll for initiative for those elements, but I don't recommend it. In the case of complex traps, it's better to have the active elements act on set initiative counts, namely 20 and 10. The fast elements of a trap, the whirling blades that flash out and slay species, should act on initiative count 20, and the slower elements of a trap, the columns that tumble down to crush PCs under them, should act on initiative count 10. And if you want to be really nasty, something I usually support, you could have super fast elements act on both initiative count 20 and 10 in a round. Not only is this realistic, but it also spaces the active elements out over the course of a round. And spacing an enemy's actions out over a round makes things more interesting for players. And yes, in this case, the trap is essentially an enemy. Number 9, design countermeasures. Much like simple traps, complex traps will also have countermeasures, ways to spot them and disarm them. However, there is a big difference here. A complex trap should never be defeated with just one check. What a terribly anticlimactic way to end all the dramatic buildup. Whirling blades coming out of the walls, columns falling down on players, a rune causing folk to run back into the whirling blades. That's absolutely terrifying. And then along comes the rogue, makes one die roll, disarms everything, and the group passes through the corridor with ease. Why the crap would anyone in the game world go to all the effort of creating such a complex, expensive trap if it could be disarmed and bypassed so easily? They wouldn't, so don't allow it. Instead, each element of a trap should need be disabled individually. The whirling blades, the falling columns, the rune of fear. And the characters might need to stand in particular locations on the map in order to do so. And some elements, such as the whirling blades that stretch down half the long corridor, might need to be disabled at various points of the hallway in order to disable all of them. Thus, shutting down a particular element of a complex trap might take multiple actions and successes. Now, you'll determine which actions might need to be taken to disarm the various elements of the trap, but you should also allow your players to use their own creativity. They might come up with ways to disarm or bypass certain parts of the trap that would totally work, but you just didn't think of them. That's fine, and a wonderful thing. Players coming up with unexpected solutions to problems happens all the time in the game. That's a good thing that game masters should roll with. How to run a complex trap at the table. Now, after discussing how to design a complex trap, I imagine it's fairly intuitive as to how to run it. So I'll keep this brief and give you the main highlights. First, when the trap is triggered, describe the beginning of some of the effects to build drama, excitement, and anticipation in your players. As the door slides shut behind you, you hear gears begin to rumble behind the walls. The columns lining the long hallway start to tremble ever so slightly. You spot a faint green glow at the far end of the corridor. Everyone roll initiative. And then the players roll initiative and you play out the encounter much the same way you would a combat encounter. The players take their turns, the trap takes its turns, and you adjudicate and resolve things as they happen over the course of the encounter. This will, of course, include characters trying to bypass and disarm the trap dealing damage, and all that cool jazz. Once they overcome the trap, I would definitely reward them with experience points for doing so, if you use experience points and not milestone leveling, of course, because a complex trap does represent a challenge overcome much the same as a group of monsters does. Furthermore, a complex trap should be counted against the Adventuring Day experience point pool. Since traps, and especially complex traps, are likely to deplete the characters of resources, they need to be accounted for in the total number of encounters characters will have during their Adventuring Day. And if you're not sure how the Adventuring Day mechanic works, please take a look at my video titled How to Stop Players from Resting All the Time, where I go over in detail how the Adventuring Day works. Now, perhaps you want to use traps, including complex traps, in your game, but you don't exactly want to make them yourself. That's cool, I got your back. Over at my website, thedmlair.com, you can find tons of 100% free traps to use in your games. And not only that, but we have tons of other D&D resources available at thedmlair.com, including entire 5th edition adventures for you to use. And if you're looking for premium Game Master resources, I suggest you take a look at Lair magazine. Lair magazine is a monthly publication I provide to my patrons, and it includes a plethora of high-quality Game Master resources for folks to use in their games. If you plan to throw some complex traps at your players in your next game session, give a thumbs up to this video, and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let YouTube know that I don't completely suck. And until next time, let's use some complex traps in our game, shall we?